Hello, I'm Carl Charisse, the founder of Horizon CX, a consultancy based in Boston, Massachusetts. I'd like to introduce you to our CX Pro training and certification course by way of the short learning segment on Voice of the Customer metrics. CX Pro is a 12-module instructor-led online course covering all of the basic elements of customer experience management that you'll need to know to be a successful customer experience manager. So let's begin this metrics discussion with one of the most popular and most widely used VoC metrics in business today. The Net Promoter Score is derived by asking the question, how likely are you to recommend our company to a friend or colleague? Respondents rank their likelihood to recommend on a scale ranging from 0 through 10, where 0 is extremely unlikely and a 10 is extremely likely. People that select a 9 or a 10 are considered promoters. Those that select a 7 or 8 are considered passive. And those that select a 6 or below are considered detractors. The percentage of promoters minus the percentage of detractors gives you the Net Promoter Score. The Net Promoter Score is considered a relationship metric, meaning that it's most appropriately used within a relationship survey. One shortfall with the NPS question alone is that you also need to ask for the reason behind the rating, as insights and actions cannot be taken based on a number by itself. In terms of pros and cons of Net Promoter Score, on the pro side, NPS is a widely used and popular metric, especially among senior leaders and executives, because it's easy to understand, easy to explain, and easy to communicate. It's a great indicator of brand loyalty and how your customers are feeling about the overall relationship in general. On the other side of the coin, as a number, it can be oversimplified unless you ask an additional open-ended question that'll give respondents a chance to explain their ratings. Follow-up action plans based on results is an essential element to maintaining the integrity of the Net Promoter Score, and not taking the action is a detriment for certain for using it. And finally, depending on your particular industry or business, NPS in general is limited to internal comparisons or benchmarks. Okay, now on to the customer satisfaction score. This is measured by asking customers, how would you rate your overall satisfaction with our company, products, services, and interactions? It's a metric that has a long history and is often applied as an overall assessment of the total experience that a customer has had with your business over all touch points along the customer journey. A 5-point scale is most commonly used, with scale elements also labeled with descriptive words. Overall customer satisfaction is expressed by either calculating an average score or by using the top 2-box percentage method, meaning the total percentage of 4 and 5 ratings. Similar to the NPS, the CSAT metric is considered a relationship metric that serves to evaluate the overall customer relationship and end-to-end experience. It is typically measured annually or semi-annually. In terms of pros and cons, pros, the customer satisfaction score is a statistically sound metric. Most people are accustomed to answering the satisfaction question using either the words or the 1 to 5 ratings, so it's easy to understand and implement. It can also be used for measuring satisfaction on individual touch points as well as overall satisfaction. And it's the second most popular metric next to NPS, and it's often used in addition to NPS. In terms of cons, wording of the CSAT question is not standardized like NPS, making it a little more difficult to compare scores among different organizations. And then merely satisfied customers is a fairly low bar that may give organizations a false sense of security because it doesn't necessarily lead to loyalty. Okay, let's talk about the customer effort score. This one is aimed at determining how much effort a customer has to exert to get a question answered or a problem resolved. Reducing the effort in customer service or other routine interactions is considered a good practice. Advocates of the customer effort score believe that when it comes to customer service or support, effortlessness is the most relevant attribute of customer satisfaction. The CES is typically measured on a scale from 1 to 7, where a 1 indicates considerable effort and a 7 indicates relatively little effort. Like NPS and CSAT, the CES is a collective metric, meaning that it's a measure of a sample of customers as opposed to an individual customer. The customer effort score is simply calculated by dividing the arithmetical sum of all responses by the total number of responses. Scores of 5 and above are considered good, while scores of below 5 are considered not so good. The customer effort score is largely a transactional or touchpoint metric, more commonly used to determine customer experiences within a call center interaction, or in cases where low effort might be the main satisfier or loyalty driver. In terms of pros and cons, on the pro side, the customer effort score zeroes in on one specific part of the customer experience at any number of touch points, and likely the one that customers value the most. Contacting an organization's technical helpline would be an example of where using customer effort score would be most appropriate to quickly assess and identify problems and to remove obstacles that might be making the customer touch point a little more difficult. On the con side, it's a metric that focuses on only one specific thing, the amount of effort a customer has to expend to complete a transaction. And therefore, it's not enough of an overall CX metric by itself. It also doesn't measure either overall satisfaction or customer loyalty. Let's talk about this one you don't hear too much about, is the Secure Customer Index. This is a composite metric that consists of 3 or more elements, most commonly an overall satisfaction metric, a likelihood to repurchase metric, and a likelihood to recommend metric. The Secure Customer Index is determined by the sum of each of the individual metrics, all of which must use the same rating scale, and then divided by the max value of that particular rating scale. For example, if 3 metrics shown here were used along with the 0 through 10 rating scale, the total score of each would be divided by 30, the maximum score possible, to produce an index ranging from 0 to 1. Each range of values indicates how secure that customer or segment of customers are based on their responses. So if you're already using NPS recommend question and the CSAT metric, and if you added the likelihood to repurchase metric, then you have all 3 basic elements of the Secure Customer Index. Now, this can also be built on additional elements as well, not limited to 3 measures. So therefore, it lends itself to a little bit of scaling. In terms of pros and cons, the Secure Customer Index provides both an individual customer score as well as an overall score among a group of customers, whether a sampling or of a population or a particular segment of customers. Using a combined metric like the Secure Customer Index avoids relying on a singular metric. It also serves as a more stable metric on which to base triggered action alerts and case management. In terms of cons, as with any of the aforementioned metrics, any metric by itself only provides partial information. You still need to know the why behind the metric in order to determine any root causes for dissatisfaction and to formulate responses along with resolution and recovery. The Secure Customer Index has a more complex calculation, and therefore it may not be as easy to explain and promote internally. And lastly, we'll talk here about the Horizon Experience Rating, or HXR as we call it. This is a composite metric that we at Horizon CX have adapted from some similar rating schemes and is based on 3 specific measures: achievement, energy, and reaction. Measures that determine how well a customer is able to achieve their goals and objectives with the least amount of energy and effort and end up feeling good about the experience. This metric can be derived from either a single transaction or from an overall relationship perspective after a series of transactions have occurred along the customer journey or through the customer lifecycle. Each of the 3 elements of the Horizon Experience Rating is measured on a scale from 1 to 5, where 1 is low and 5 is high, and expressed as a percentage. The aim is obviously to achieve the highest rating possible. Thus, if a 5 rating was achieved for all 3 elements, the overall Horizon Experience Rating would be 100%. Likewise, any combination of ratings would yield different and final overall ratings. The Horizon Experience Rating can be used as either a transactional or a relationship measure. When used as a transactional measure, it would refer to a specific event or transaction in time, and when used as a relationship measure, it would refer to the series of events or interactions over a long time period, which could represent measures along various touch points along the customer journey or during an annual assessment of the overall customer experience. In terms of pros and cons, on the pro side, the Horizon Experience Rating is unique in that it includes the reaction element, which is based around emotion or sentiment. And that's something that's often overlooked and not included in other CX measures. It also includes the element of energy or effort, which eliminates the need to also use the customer effort score metric by itself. And lastly, just like the secure customer index, it serves as a great overall metric, especially if you decide to use a single CX metric. In terms of cons, any metric, again, by itself only provides partial information, so you still need to know the why behind the metric in order to determine root causes for dissatisfaction and to formulate responses and resolutions. It's also a calculated metric, making it similar to the secure customer index and the net promoter score. Hope you've enjoyed this short segment of learning around customer experience management and possibly gained a few new insights and ideas around VoC measurements. This topic is part of the Metrics and Measurement module, which is just one of 12 modules that make up the CX Pro training and certification course. This is a practical, experiential, hands-on course designed and developed by customer experience professionals and specifically for those within a customer experience management role. Anyone new to the role of customer experience, just getting started in customer experience, or even those that have been within a customer experience role for some time will find this formalized and structured training course in the basic essentials of customer experience management helpful in building loyalty, customer experience knowledge base, and augmenting their careers. Led by 2 certified customer experience professionals with over 40 collective years of experience between them in the field of customer experience management, this course will prepare you with the fundamental knowledge, skills required of a successful customer experience professional. It is a certification course, meaning that there's an exam offered after the class, which, when passed, will earn the CX Pro designation. The CX Pro course content also aligns with the 6 disciplines of the customer experience as outlined by the Customer Experience Professionals Association. Customer experience management is a system and no one element stands alone, and certainly VoC is just a small part of it. Each element is part of an integrated and holistic process. I hope this brief snippet of learning was informative and helpful to you in deciding whether this training course is right for you as well as your organization. We encourage you to visit us on the web at www.horizoncx.com. To request further information, please email us at info@horizoncx.com or call us at 1-800-538-4091. Thank you for your kind attention and thank you for listening.